So what's happening, people? Welcome back to the Intermat Wrestling Podcast. We are the quad of crazies that love to talk about wrestling. And we missed last week, but we are back as we go into the holiday to discuss the first half of the season before we start the new year. We'll get into Journeymen, which I will be at, as well as some highlights, like I said, from the first half and any wrestlers that stuck out to us. But I first before we even get into that, right before we came on, we were talking about Rocco Welsh. So why not, jump right into it? We have heard, obviously, there were rumors that he was going to be leaving Ohio State. Um, Even up to this morning for me, I had gotten text messages that he was gone and headed to Stillwater, and that was the rumor that had been out there. But he just put out a tweet. And then also Coach Ryan put on his Instagram story a picture of Rocco Welsh, and it's got Buckeye on it, just a picture of him, and he's tagged. Obviously, the rumor mill is always swirling, but this one really seemed like it had a lot of legs that he was going to be on his way out. What did you guys make of the rumor, first of all, and what do you make of him staying?
Sounds like somebody found their wallet, would be my guess. I mean, I don't have any money around Christmas time, so somebody budgeted better than I did. That's what I'm getting out of it. Um, wasn't super surprised just kind of with the stack of talent they have there to see that he was looking somewhere else, but I don't know. I'm not super surprised either way, honestly. I didn't think he was going to come back from what I had heard, but he says he is, so
I think I think a lot happened with that program. I mean, before the season started, it looked good. They had great depth, they had great lineups, they had a lot of things going for them. A lot of people returning, very positive. And then all at once, a lot seemed to change. And I think the first thing that changed was I don't think he's a 174 pounder anymore. I think that they found out pretty quickly that that's actually not going to be sustainable. I mean, he was in the All Star Classic until he wasn't, right? And he wrestled up at 184, I think, the weekend before. Um, and I think that has a lot to do with it because then all of a sudden you got to have other difficult conversations with other guys in that room to try and figure out what's going on. You've kind of see them shifting some people around in the lineup right now, and I don't know if those two things are aligned or correlated at all. They've also had some injuries go on. I mean, the team that they put out there this past week against Pittsburgh and the lineup they put out clearly is not what we projected necessarily at the beginning of the season. So I think when there's a lot of change and a lot of upheaval and a lot of things that you kind of have planned and then they don't go that way, it tends to make people kind of question things, right? And I'm not, I think that's human nature. I don't. This is not a pointed negative thing towards the program or anybody else. Um, but I know he had plans for himself to be a four-time national champ and those sorts of things. And it's tough when all of a sudden you come back after being an NCAA finalist and potentially not have a spot in the lineup, right? And that's got to be frustrating for a guy that talented and that young. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes or how it happened, but for the program and for him, I'm happy. I think that it's good that he's going to be sticking around. I think that however that came to be, I think cohesion tends to be good, especially for a younger guy. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the Bucks, and I hope that this ends up well for all of them because I mean, still they're trying to figure out what they're going to do at 174 and 184 and 197 heavyweight. We got to figure out what's going on with Feldman long term and his injury concerns there. So, you know, that's frustrating for the coaching staff and for a lot of the team. And obviously that kind of trickles down, So hopefully, I know they've got good leaders in that room and I'm sure they can kind of put it together and still have a good season. Maybe not what they'd wanted, but still a very, very good season.
Yeah, and I think we've heard rumors that he was wanting to not redshirt or wanted to redshirt, and he hasn't wrestled. So I'm not sure if that was, disagreement there between him and the staff about redshirting versus not, but it looked like it was. If that was the case, it got bad enough where he was on his way out, like you guys said. We were all kind of thinking that was where he was going. Turns out he's staying. So yeah, I don't know what happened today, whether it was NIL deal followed up somehow came through, but yeah, good to see him stay, and nice to see Ohio State, get back in the trophy hunt here.
Yeah, and I think that's I mean, call it what it is. In today's kind of atmosphere and climate of college sports, the low hanging fruit is that the money was upped, right? That's what everybody's going to look at, and that's everybody's thought is, hey, they found some money somewhere, right? Um, but it also could be just a conversation. You recruited this kid out of high school. He gets shoved into the lineup because of injury and ends up in the NCAA finals, comes back, and things certainly change, whether it is him getting bigger and being up at 184 or other guys being in the lineup that don't have a red shirt like he does, because he still does have that red shirt year after not redshirting last year. It's a good problem to have though, right? Where you do have a kind of a log jam of talent in certain areas, and we've certainly seen that with other teams. There's a reason that Bear Claw is at Utah Valley because of that log jam that Penn State had, and obviously Penn State is still dealing with a bit of a log jam with Facundo and Kasich. So, Ohio State is certainly not the only team to have these sorts of issues and these sorts of problems, but like I said, the low hanging fruit is, oh, they opened the checkbook or they found some money. Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say maybe it was just miscommunication and conversations that were being had behind the scenes that literally only the team and the coaches are privy to. Um, but there was certainly smoke to this rumor, and there were plenty of people that were in the know on it. But that is the key word, right? It is just a rumor at the end of the day, and if nothing comes of it, then it's just something that could have happened. And there's plenty of coulda, woulda, shouldas in sports in general. And I think this is going to be one that we definitely add to the list. But as I said, there were plenty of text messages, plenty of tweets. I'm sure there were rumors in different communities and on different forums where a number of people were saying it, right? And that's why I feel like the talk about Rocco Welsh kind of had some legs, because if that many people are speaking of something, there's got to be something to it. But again, hat tip to Ohio State figuring it out, because he put out a tweet that, you know, Ohio State is his home and he's not going anywhere. Coach Ryan posted on his Instagram story a picture of Rocco Welsh and said Buckeye for life or something to that nature, right? So they have figured it out. He's, not going anywhere, at least for now, according to him and Coach Ryan. So I don't think there's anything else for us to really talk about. But the rumors that swirl, right, that we hear about, things that are posted, text messages that are sent. This was one where everybody was like, yeah, that's happening. This is 100% that this is happening. But it's always happening until it's not. So Buckeyes keep their returning NCAA finalist.
Best rumors are the album by Fleetwood Mac. So we all know that.
Kevin will always give us at least some sort of reference. I love it.
Yeah.
Only 12 minutes in.
Only 12 minutes in.
You missed the Kansas reference before you got on here.
I
There
did.
was a good one.
I'm sure he'll have more. He always does. There's always something. He's kind of like the magician where the cloth just keeps coming out of the sleeve. Those references, they keep it coming. They certainly.
I thought you meant he
coming.
was full of shit, like most magicians, but yeah, that works too.
All of that whole umbrella.
Sleight of hand is real. So I wanna kind of pivot from a big rumor story to the big things that happen on the mat. And I want us to kind of pick through the conferences that we cover. Who are the guys that have really stood out to us so far this year? And Robbie, I'm going to start with you in the ACC. Who are the guys that you didn't expect to see make a huge impact, or guys that you expected a huge impact from that aren't really shining the way you thought?
I mean, there's a few that immediately jump off the page, and we've talked about TJ Stewart a lot about, his 0-4 start, what we're not seeing from him. Um, he's got a hell of a test this week if, they pull the trigger with him against Dustin Plott in this duel on Thursday. Um, so maybe that's a chance for him to get back on his feet. Or it's going to be, a test to see if maybe it is, a redshirt issue that we need to look at. But as far as surprises, the biggest one that stands out is Vince Robinson.
Yeah.
He's looked amazing. Las Vegas aside, that was kind of an anomaly, but he's been, an offensive machine. We didn't know what it was going to look like between him and Camacho coming into the season. He very much asserted himself as the starter, and he's looked fantastic. So that's the biggest one that stands out. I mean, Caleb Henson's been fantastic. I'm the president of the Isaac Trimble fan club, so he's been great. Duke, well, I mean, Stanford, I think, is another one to look at. Jaden Abbas kind of had a resurgence at CKLV. He looked fantastic. Gregor Chalakian has looked great all year. So Stanford's got a lot of good things going on. Tyler Knox has been great. So they're going to be a bigger force within the conference than I think was initially thought. I think they're going to be challenging for a dual title. They're right up there in head-to-head matchups against Virginia Tech and North Carolina State. So those duels are going to be a lot tighter than I think we expected at the beginning of the year.
Agree on
Lorenzo
the
Norman.
Vincent Robinson thing. Honestly, he has looked amazing so far this year. And as you said, I don't think that he was really on anyone's radar. I'm sure everybody thought that he was going to be potentially a backup, right, to a guy that's been the perennial 125. So definitely agree with that. Kevin, what were you going to say?
Just Lorenzo Norman continuing with
yeah.
what Robbie was saying about Stanford. Like, you don't see anybody really shut down Hamity in the way. I mean, he still lost to him, right? But like, Hamity was blowing through the competition at CKLV, and I mean, we saw Norman get the win over Griffith last year, and that was impressive and everything. But he's looked every bit of the dynamic wrestler you thought he could be so far this season, as well for the Cardinals there.
Agreed. It's good to have a little bit more competition in the ACC for sure. I mean, obviously NC State has been sitting at the top for a while. Virginia Tech, obviously a threat, but Stanford coming in, and you're already seeing the fruits of the labor of that coaching staff being there for longer than 30 seconds, right? Last year they came in and it was finding out what everybody's names were and where they were going to fit in the lineup, right? It was not, not as good as you probably wanted it in Stanford. So having a full year and you start to already see the development that Ayers has put in. And I love the fact that there's, more parity coming to the ACC, because like I said, it really has been NC State kind of just ruling that conference for a while. How do you see, Robbie, how do you see Stanford matching up with NC State whenever, I don't know, when is that duel? Do they wrestle each other? Or is that something that waits to the end of the year?
Everyone will face each other just because there's only 7 teams. Stanford's schedule is kind of wonky. I want to say, let me double check this, but they're making one trip out to the East Coast, and I think they're doing a Friday, Sunday because of that. So I think they're doing NC State.
The duel.
Yeah. NC State on the 14th and Duke on the 16th. So that weekend they'll do a Friday night duel against NC State and a Sunday duel against Duke. Then North Carolina goes out there. So the plan is to make one big East Coast trip every year. So they'll have the Virginia schools next year. They'll come out for Virginia Tech, and then I guess North Carolina as well. North Carolina Pitt. I don't know, it's kind of weird to have an East Coast team or a West Coast team in an East Coast conference. So it kind of adds some complexity to it. Matchup wise, it's going to be tight, honestly. I think a lot of it will depend on, what they do at 125. If Nico Provo's back, that's going to be a big statement. But none of their powers really hit each other. Because at 25, you got Vince Robinson versus yet to be determined Tyler Knox and Troy Holman. So you're leaning towards Stanford there. Mulroney at 41, Consiglio, you're leaning NC State. So it's really back and forth. The only big matchups you'll have power versus power is probably 174 with Lorenzo Norman and Matt Singleton. So, and that's, Maddie's been back and forth, but has looked pretty good so far this year. So it's going to be tight. I think they match up better with NC State than they do with Virginia Tech. I think I would lean more towards Virginia Tech beating them just with the way they stack up against each other than NC State. I think that one will come down to bonus points. But
Looking forward to that one. Austin, over to you in EIWA and the Ivy League. How are things looking the first year for Ivy to have their own conference? And what's been different, I guess? Has there been any sort of competition change without the Ivies being in the EIWA?
has Brown wrestled yet?
Yeah, Brown, I think they had one scheduled event, and their second one is on Friday at the Sheraton
Oh, there we go.
at Lehigh. Yeah, a lot of even them. Harvard, they had like 0 dual meets. I think Harvard competed like 3 different times. But to answer your question, Holmes, no, not really. Because there's a lot of opens, a lot of different invites. They never really dueled each other until second semester anyway. So we won't see much of that until second semester. A lot of them still did Journeyman Classic together. A lot of them still did things like Keystone Classic. Princeton Open is right in the backyards of all these teams. So we did see some overlap, but I think it'll really take more effect coming the second semester here.
Yeah. Any guys standing out that maybe we expected in either one of those conferences?
I mean, the ones we probably should talk about are actually redshirting, from Lehigh. Max Brignola and
Yeah.
Luke Stanich, both putting together hell of a years, have beaten 1 or 2 All-Americans apiece this year. And, they're still going to stay in redshirt. I think they're kind of waiting for those classes to maybe empty out a little bit. Those guys will come back next year, and then they'll have 3-headed monster between Crookham. Matty Lopes might be in there at 25 by then. Stanich at 41 and Brignola at 65. And they also have a bunch of youth on that team too. So letting those guys like, Rosinski at 57 get another year under his belt. They'll be a lot tougher next year. Just unfortunate Beard will be gone after this year, but they'll have some guys filling in, there eventually.
When do we see Lehigh's new heavyweight?
I guess breaking news, we could potentially see him on Friday here at the Sheraton. Talked to some sources today, and it's quite a task to get someone eligible right away at the beginning of the semester here. But the way things have happened in the off season, you kind of just show up on campus and can wrestle. So I'm not sure what the different rules are here, but yeah, there's
And it might
still
even
some
be
hurdles.
different with Lehigh too, right? Like the way that they do things is always a lot different. You don't really redshirt. You kind of defer eligibility and you continue to compete. So it's a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
different at Lehigh.
yeah. You're right. Eligibility rules are a little more strict on this side of the country here, not so much in the Midwest. And I think because Treffin
Well,
did
leave the East Coast
graduate
out of this.
recently.
Some of us don't have strict rules.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I think he did graduate, didn't he, Robbie? From
Yeah, he
NC State.
graduated
Yeah.
Yeah, so
2 weeks
I think there's
ago.
the verification that he transferred or that he graduated, and then that he
He's
can
entering
apply
the
for
grad
a
program.
post grad program. Thank you. Yeah, so a few more hurdles. They're hoping that's done by Thursday, so he can wrestle Friday. If not, he'll be at their next event, probably sometime over the holiday.
Yeah. The guy that's really stood out for me is Ty Whalen, and I'm
Mhm.
sure we expected it because of how he looked last year and just how Dubuque has talked about, wait till you see the guys that are sitting right now, right? Like he was certainly one of the guys. I mean, he's undefeated right now. Coming off a tech fall, but his matches they have not been close. I'm
Yeah.
looking at his results right now. I think there was one close match, and that's with Compusto from Lockhaven in the finals of the Princeton Open. It was 2-1. Everyone else, they've scored. No one has scored more than 3 points on him. So it's been a pretty dominant year for Waylon. And just like the coaching staff that left Princeton, the guys that are there, it's really good to see them have guys that can be consistent. Because last year it was not pretty for Princeton whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they'll be at Midlands again this year, where Whalen won last year, unattached there. So looking to A, defend his title, and B, get some really good competition and really make a name for himself. I think that's, like you mentioned, yeah, he's killing guys, but he's not really wrestling high level competition yet, which you'll see at Midlands, which I'm excited for a lot of those schools to see some competition here because they've been laying low a little bit this semester.
For sure. In the Big Ten, where Kevin and I dwell, things have been pretty cool. Kevin, I'm going to let you start out. What are the highlights for you from the first half of the year?
Well, excuse me, in my throat. I think we might have the same main guy as far as like been super impressed by, but like Nick Bazakis has looked awesome. Like he really is everything that I had concerns with regarding his weight cut and the issues that, whether it was the weight cut or whatever it was last season, just getting used to whatever. He's looked great this year. He's looked really, really good. So I'm very much impressed with him and what he's been able to do this season. And expect him to continue to make improvements. He's shown in every other facet of his wrestling and outside of college that he's world class. And yeah, I think he's just going to settle into this year and continue to improve and get better. So I've been really, really impressed with him first and foremost. The other thing I'm kind of looking at is, I'm going to go back to Maryland. I like Maryland, and I've been following them for the last several years. And, those guys that have kind of changed weights, Ethan Miller up at 157 has looked great. He's got a win over Joey Blaze, who had a really good Cliff Keen Las Vegas. So that's really kind of helping him stand out. Jackson Smith has looked good, dropping down at 184. Cal Miller has shown some good things at 149. So I'm impressed with them and what they were able to put together. And Dario Limas at 141 as well has shown some that he can be a real deal guy as well. So, what they were able to put together. Oh, and then Seth Nevels as well. I shouldn't forget him. He's quietly out there doing his thing and kind of settling into, last year was really his first full season in a lineup, and did pretty well I don't remember if he was in the blood round at NCAAs or the round before that, but he had a good NCAA tournament, and he is currently, undefeated, 7-0, ranked 14th by us. So putting together a good year. I'm impressed with what they're doing in general.
Yeah, I agree with Nevels. He's one of those guys that I had a chance to get to know when he was in high school because I had so many of those trips out to Doc B and, sitting down and just like talking with him and his brothers and the family, like such like awesome people. So seeing him in a lineup fully and doing so well, especially for a school like Maryland, who hasn't really had a shining star since one of Austin's high school teammates was there.
Well, headlock
Right,
Shep
so
Talk.
little headlock Shep Talk, right? So it's been a while since Maryland has had a guy that they can look to, and obviously I know they had some guys last year, but there's more consistency this year where it's not just one guy that you're pointing at, right? So the fan part of me loves to see that Nevels is doing really well. Now the guys that have stuck out for me, and I know it's probably not the flashiest, but I'm going to have to start with Matt Ramos, and it's because of the inconsistency that we saw from him last year and how he is consistently killing people this year. Right? He's got 2 regular decision wins. That is it. Like a tech fall in the finals, right? Like it's just crushing people and like not even letting up on anyone. So, that's the thing for me where I'm like, this dude is legit. And I think this could be his year, just like just like Vincent Robinson, who it sucks we didn't see that match at CKLV, which I think it would have been awesome. But those two, where 125 was kind of a shit show last year, this year we've got consistency. And Matt Ramos is the consistency that I think we thought we were going to see last year from him coming off of the biggest win of the century. So he's the first guy that has really stuck out for me when I'm looking at Big Ten guys, like I said, it's because of the fact that he has been super duper consistent. And then the other guy that again, not super flashy, but it's because he's coming off an injury is Shane Van Ness. And Van Ness has been another one of the guys that, obviously I'm in the top two guys in their weight classes right now with who I'm impressed by, but it's because of how things were the previous year. Van Ness coming off the injury, and Ramos not very consistent last year. I mean, he lost to, high school kid who will be at Penn State in a year. So, or a year or two. So it's, for me, seeing Van Ness make the statement that he made against Ty Waters in the All-Star Classic, the match may not have counted, but those points were on the board and he put up a lot of them. And just seeing how he's been pretty dominant this year, that's what's been, very impressive for me. And I know like none of us cover the Big 12, but overall I'm very impressed with Oklahoma State and what they're doing. We obviously didn't know what we were going to get from a coaching staff of mostly first year coaches, right? But they put how many guys, 5 guys in the CKLV finals, came away with 2 champs. Wyatt Hendrickson looks like an absolute monster, just mowing people down. So they're obviously looking awesome. And I think a lot of people have them in trophy contention already this year. And outside of that, Utah Valley, love seeing what they're doing as well. Bear Claw looks amazing outside of, taking a loss, but he's been the guy that I think we expected him to be. Throwing the Big 12 out there, have you guys seen anyone in the Big 12 or any other conference that the 4 of us don't cover that have been really impressive to you?
Jordan Volk's looked good.
Jordan Volk has looked good, but I do want to one more thing on the Oklahoma State thing, and I was thinking about this earlier, like like the situation, and I know John, when he retired, said that this, he wanted to retire when it was in a good position for somebody to hand it off to, right? Better than when he took it over, I think is how he phrased it, right? So, but it's almost a better situation than inheriting like Iowa when Gable retired, right? Like this is a situation where it's a young team. It's obviously a premier program. There's a lot of upside to those athletes that are there, and they're going to be around for a little while longer, at least a lot of them. So there's, again, you can build that culture and consistency and have that kind of grow within those athletes. And then obviously, they've done a good job with recruiting and bringing people in, but clearly the development is happening and clearly the culture is being established there. Like, whereas if you take over Iowa after, 15 out of 21 national championships and 21 Big Ten championships or something, it's like you can only go down, right? Like that's not just going to continue. So, and this is not to take anything away from David Taylor and company, right? Like they're doing a really good job. But I was just like, man, that is kind of a better position to be in to take over something like this, where it is positioned like it's on the trajectory up. Just keep it going, right? So, no, I'm not going to make the joke. Never mind. I'll move on from there.
He also didn't have looming like sanctions. When John took over for Josie, wasn't there some like some issues within the program with Joe? Am I remembering that correctly?
If I remember correctly, John like didn't want the coach to get fired, right? Like they took second at NCAA's or something, and then they fired the guy. and John
Yeah,
took over.
there was some stuff that he had been like previously suspended for. I don't remember what it was. There was something like that, but it was the program was in a good spot, but the coaching staff was not when John took
Yeah.
over. So
The joke I was going to make, actually, I'm going to make it because it's
there
not
it
a
is.
knock on the guys, but here it is. So, but it's like the whole meme where Ryan Day takes the controller from who was the coach before him at Ohio
Urban
State,
Meyer.
Urban Meyer, and then it just shows the bus driving off the cliff. Like
Yeah.
independent, it's not a knock at Ohio State. That'd be funny for anybody. So they could have, if that game had gone different with Michigan, they could have made the same meme with Sharon Moore, right? But anyway, that was funny.
Anything to throw a dig at Ohio State. I love it.
No,
Comes full circle
that's
for
what
the
I didn't
Michigan
want.
guy. Full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this first half of the season it's been great, honestly. I mean, the All-Star Classic was great, even though I would have wished that it was a couple weeks earlier, so we truly kicked off the season with it. Um, but there's been, a number of guys that have returned to lineups that look ultra strong, guys that, you know, have transferred and are already seeing the development. Speaking of Oklahoma State, with the guys that they had that have transferred in, and you're seeing the development. I said Hendrickson just like an animal. But obviously the biggest overarching story is Gable coming back, right? And I know we talked about him once or I think once before. But Minnesota's lineup with Gable is very strong. I think Oklahoma State and Minnesota this year are two teams that we didn't really have pegged to be in contention, maybe, be top 10, but we didn't know what we were going to get specifically from Oklahoma State because they are brand new. What is it? 5 or 6 of those guys in their entire lineup are all brand new. So we didn't know what we were going to get there. And then obviously this coaching staff being different. So the cohesion is there. And then, like I said, Minnesota comes in already with a ton of guys that are ranked and looking very good. And Eggum has very high hopes for them. And then they add Gable to that mix, and he's doing nothing but putting up bonus points whenever he is in the lineup. And it's just like, man, are we going to be looking at Minnesota and Oklahoma State of old, where they are in high trophy contention once again? Obviously, it's going to take a bazooka and a couple of hand grenades to defeat Penn State, but the 2, 3, 4 spots, I had Nebraska pegged to be in one of those spots. I don't anymore with Oklahoma State and how they're looking. And then obviously how Minnesota looks, and them being bolstered by McAnally and a new face in their lineup who looks really good, as well as Gable being back. Those bonus points that they're getting, as well as the other guys that came back like Wells, they're definitely going to put them in contention.
Dude, I didn't realize until I was looking at the rankings today. Shout out to Earl. Vance Baumgart's 11-0. Like, I didn't realize he wrestled 11 different people this year. Like,
What an awesome
and
name.
I knew he was coming back, and I knew he was an All-American last year and had a great story and everything. But like, damn, that dude's putting it together. So yeah.
I think the funny thing about that, right, is because we haven't seen the top dog a lot. We haven't seen Penn State wrestle a ton. And so you kind of forget that there are so many teams that have wrestled a ton thus far. Hendrickson 10-0, Bombauer, you just mentioned 11-0. Then you look at Kirkfleet, who's at 4 or 5-0 right now, right? You see Srirachi, same thing, right? So Penn State probably started they started their season a little bit later. And I think that's what kind of gets lost, right? Because everybody wants to see how Penn State looks this year. We want to see how Starachi looks at 184 pounds. We want to see Lillidahl and how he looks as a true freshman, and how Braden Davis looks at 33. And as I mentioned, Van Ness coming back after the injury. So everybody pays such close attention to that you forget that there are so many teams that have put it on the line weeks before some of the top schools have done it. So that's why it's funny. Like, you do have a lot of big records right now, even though a lot of the teams haven't matched up. But the other team I want to talk about before we jump to the collegiate duels is Iowa. Coming into the season, I think, Kevin and I last year when we talked about the preview stuff that we were going to be doing, we're like, man, we don't know what Iowa has. We don't really know what that lineup is going to look like. This year, it's kind of the same question, but with way more firepower, where you're like, last year they were really trying to figure out who was going to be at 74 or 84, who was the best guy to put there. This year, it's kind of the same thing, but it's like, which gun do you want? You know what I mean? Because each one of these guys, including Ferrari, has looked phenomenal this year. What do you guys make of how Iowa went from who the hell are we going to see to holy shit, who the hell are we going to see?
Dude, they're so loaded. They're so loaded. I mean, we're going to go over what we're looking forward to in the second half of the season, and I just have 3 Iowa duels written down. Uh, I'm pumped for them. And then the other one I have written down, I won't get to it yet. We'll cover that later. But no, I mean, they're completely loaded. They're absolutely loaded. And even before you get to what they're going to figure out at 174 and 184 with Brands or Ferrari or Gabe Arnold or Patrick Kennedy, you've got Ayala, who's looked awesome at 133 so far this year. They're figuring it out, man. And obviously they had some guys transfer out. Do we have any updates actually on Teamer and how he's doing? I mean, last time I saw he was.
I haven't heard anything. I heard it was a hamstring injury, and I was getting some different texts from different people when it happened, and it was he's going to be getting an MRI literally on Monday. If it's torn, he'll have surgery and everything else. But I haven't gotten anything since then. It's definitely something to look at. I'll probably shoot a text here or there tomorrow to see if anybody has any updates on how his progress is. But no, I haven't really seen many things from him. I don't know what the prognosis is on Teamer.
Well, he's certainly hoping for nothing but the best as far as a recovery and return. He's been awesome for college wrestling and fun to watch his whole career. And obviously, we're talking Iowa. That'd be a huge bolster to have him back and healthy. But independent of that, Stephen Buchanan has been a world beater so far this year. He's looked awesome. Jacob Cardenas has looked awesome. So I can't wait till those two guys battle it out at some point. And in fact, I don't think they compete this year.
Army has a guy named Wolfgang Frabel. What an awesome name.
That's what we need to do is we probably should, maybe for the new year, we'll put out our all name team. We will for the new year look at the preseason NCAA champion picks that we made and see if we're sticking or kicking with some of the guys that we thought were going to be champs.
I like that.
But I do want to move to what we're looking forward to in the second half of the year, and I'm gonna start off with the event that I will be at this weekend. I'll be in Nashville calling all the action. I'm really looking forward to it. You have that first day. I mean, the sessions are 2, 4, and 6 both days. 2 mats going. Ohio State, North Carolina, Ohio State, Lock Haven, and Ohio State wrestling Iowa State. All happening on mat 1, and then Iowa State, Lock Haven, Iowa State, North Carolina, and then Lock Haven, North Carolina. Those are all on day 1, and then you get a new crop of teams. You get Penn State, Binghamton, Little Rock, and Missouri all coming in on day 2. And that final match on day 2 at 6, Penn State and Missouri. Obviously, that's the one that everybody wants to see, with heavy emphasis on Levi Haynes versus Keegan O'Toole. That's going to be a lot of fun. I even think, I mean, overall, that duel is going to be great, but that match in and of itself, I'm going to petition for that to be the last match. So, Carceraci, I'm sorry, but you'll probably be the first one to wrestle during that duel if I can get Frank Pop to change his mind on starting at 125. But that's honestly what I'm really honestly looking forward to, and just seeing each one of these teams. Obviously, I'm a very big fan of Little Rock and everything that they're doing. Nasir Bailey just took a pretty bad loss recently, but the development that they have had over a very short amount of time, already having a couple of All-Americans in the short amount of time that they've even existed, is pretty amazing. So, looking forward to seeing them. Obviously, want to see Missouri. I mean, looking forward to seeing every single one of those teams that are going to be there. But the match with Penn State and Missouri happening on the final day, I'm hoping and praying we don't get a repeat of what happened with Cornell last year, where guys got hurt in those first two matches. I'll leave it at
Did they
that. But
though?
I am I am really hoping that guys show up. If you want to sit out any of the duels, sit out the first two, sit out the first one, sit out this, just don't sit out that duel. And I'm speaking right to Haynes and O'Toole. We need that match. Everybody wants to see that match again because we already saw it in freestyle. Let's see it in folk style. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Robbie, I'll start with you. What are you looking forward to in the ACC that's happening in the second half?
I mean, just this weekend's going to be huge. Um, Virginia Tech's going down to Stillwater for a duel with Oklahoma State on Thursday. And we've got North Carolina. Some really interesting head-to-head matchups at the collegiate duels for them uh, to pay attention to and kind of go through those in a little bit. But some big matches that they could kind of vault them into a better position going into the ACC season. And then finish it up on Sunday, NC State and Cornell, not knowing, I guess, what full strength. I don't know anything about Cornell. I don't think they know anything about themselves right now, what their lineup's going to look like.
Austin
So
shaking his head, so I don't know if he knows either.
it could be an awesome duel, right? Because I mean, on paper, that is an absolutely fantastic duel. But what lineup are we going to see? But I think that will be a good one. NC State got a little dinged up in Vegas, so it'll be nice to see, if they bounce back and where they're at. But there's some great matches there, and then just ACC season starts pretty quickly. And NC State's going to wrestle Oklahoma State as well. But Friday night duels for ACC is always good times. It's always on, always viewable for everybody, and there's going to be some really great head-to-head matchups this year. Like I said earlier, I think Stanford is going to be competitive with Virginia Tech and NC State. I think NC State, Virginia Tech is always going to be, kind of down to the wire, and that's going to determine the dual championship. And it's some fun stuff to watch. Keep your eye on Kevion Roller from Virginia. He's going to be one to keep an eye on at 25. He's been fantastic so far, and he's only getting better.
Austin, what you got in the EIWA?
I am ready to see some dual meets between these teams.
Finally.
Yeah, I
I just
mean,
want to see these guys wrestle, damn it.
yeah, I mean, obviously I love seeing them compete against other competition, but I like to see some head-to-head duels see where some of these teams are at. With the Ivy teams leaving, I'm interested to see where some of these teams shake out. Obviously Lehigh is probably top dog right now. But I think it's a good race for second place between, you have Army in there, probably Navy, Bucknell, and even Binghamton has four guys ranked in the country right now. So I think the conference is in a pretty good spot, and I just want to see who's going to chase after Lehigh and make that conference competitive. But to answer Robbie's question, technically, I do believe Ramirez and Foca are available to wrestle this weekend. Because this is second semester. I don't know if they'll be out there, but
That would be nice to see.
It would be some good matchups there with those two guys in it. They've been wrestling, in opens unattached the past few weekends, kind of getting ready. So all signs are pointing to those guys being ready, but we'll have to see there. And just second semester stuff. Lehigh Cornell, always a good dual meet. Lehigh seems to always knock off Cornell. During the season, and then Cornell usually gets them back at the IWAs, but we won't see that this year. And obviously, Army Navy is always a great match. I got to get myself to one of those and see it in person. It's always crazy on TV, awesome to watch, and always exciting to see. But I got to get myself there in person and see it.
Kev, what are you looking at in the Big Ten? I know you said you got some Iowa duels starred.
Yeah, so first and foremost, it's coming up real soon. In fact, let me just look at the exact date. Soldier Salute, December 29th
Yep.
and 30th. But in particular, a lot of those SDSU guys that were at Iowa last year are now there. So I'd love to see them go back to Iowa and have a chance to kind of, say what up. Um, SDSU's been up and down a little bit this season. They kind of got stomped by Minnesota and again, we just talked about how good Minnesota's been. So, more power to them. If I had really paid more attention, I might have more Minnesota duels written down on my sheet here as far as what I'm looking forward to. But no, Iowa, Illinois is going to be awesome. Illinois is undefeated 6-0 right now and has some really good wins, and they've looked awesome. They really don't have too many spots in their lineups where it's kind of where you don't know what you're going to get, That happens on January 17th. Obviously, Penn State, Iowa is going to be awesome, and you got to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to move some people around. What's Keeter going to look like by that point?
I think I'm going to that one, Kevin.
Are you really?
I think so.
Nice.
Try to score some tickets here.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it's going to be tough to do, which is what you'd love to see in wrestling, right?
I got a guy on the inside that could help me out.
There you go.
I'll send you guys pictures.
Nice. And then obviously, Oklahoma State, Iowa. We once again just talked about how great Oklahoma State's looked so far this year. And obviously going into the duel last year, they had a lot of confidence and felt good, and then Iowa kind of stomped them a bit, woke them up a little bit. So those are some of the main ones I'm looking at right now. Obviously, Michigan, Ohio State's a big one that I'm excited for every year. And then, now I'm just excited. I've got Cardenas written down because he wrestled so well and has looked so good all year. And evidently, unless they meet somewhere that I'm not seeing on the schedule, he's not going to see Buchanan until Big Tens. So both those guys potentially could come in undefeated.
And they both look massive.
They're both
just
enormous.
Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
At 97.
You know how great heavyweight's been the last couple of years, and now we just have this awesome set of massive 197 pounders too. That's great. And then you've got this dude Josh Barr who weighs 180 pounds, who's just whatever. I'll just wrestle 197 because that's my spot in the lineup, and I'll just start beating people. So that's another dude we didn't talk about who's looked awesome this year that I didn't expect to look this awesome.
Yeah, that was Truax at NCAAs a few years ago when he was wrestling 97. He said he weighed in at 185 at NCAAs.
Yeah,
and he's just putting dudes on their back, pinning people all man. It's man, it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kev, you mentioned Illinois, and obviously I've been very high on them from the start of the year, particularly Lucas Bird. And that's what I want to highlight with their schedule, with their Big Ten schedule starting. Lucas Bird has a hell of a stretch. He will have Buzakis. We thought at the beginning of the year he'd have Cannon, but Cannon is now up at 41. After that, he has Ayala. And then the next big test after that will be against Rutgers, where he has Shawver. And then they'll wrestle Purdue. I don't think there's really anyone there that would really threaten. But then he'll have Braden Davis with Penn State. That's the Big Ten slate for Illinois, and just for Lucas Bird. So a hell of a new year for Lucas Bird, where he is going to surely be battle tested. And then after they wrestle Penn State, it's time for Big Tens, right? So he will basically hit all the big dogs except for Ragusan in that 2-month stretch. There aren't too many teams that, or at least not too many guys that hit that many top 20 guys in a row like that throughout the season. And he is going to have a hell of a stretch. So I'm glad that you pointed out Illinois, because I was like, oh yeah, I think, at the beginning of the year when I was looking at schedules, Illinois was one of the schedules where I was like, man, Lucas Bird has a stretch and a half where it is certainly not easy at all. I know I talked about some of the Big 12 teams, but I got to go to Oklahoma State's schedule. Robbie, the match with NC State in January is always good between Oklahoma State and NC State. And that one is at NC State again this year. So that one should be a ton of fun. Northern Iowa is always a good duel. The Big 12 is going to be a lot of fun. And that's the thing is Oklahoma State has their Iowa stretch, I guess, where they wrestled Northern Iowa on January 24th, and then they had to Iowa State on the 26th. So, a good slate for them on that weekend. But certainly the match that I think everybody is going to want to watch. Let me backtrack. Also, the Iowa State match, Iowa State, Oklahoma State is on ESPN. So that will
it
be
is
available for literally everyone to see, which I think will be awesome. I would love it if the Big Ten was like, let's throw Iowa, Oklahoma State on ESPN as well. But we don't get everything we wish for. However, on February 23rd, that's going to be a serious duel because Oklahoma State goes to Carver. And as rowdy as the Oklahoma State fans get, Carver is a bit of a different beast. It's obviously bigger, tons of more kind of irate fans in Carver.
And they have ice cream.
It's a hostile environment, and they do it all with desserts, apparently. So I am really looking forward to that. I love how both Illinois and Oklahoma State have huge duels, and they go into their conference tournament like a few weeks later because after Oklahoma State wrestles Iowa, it's time for Big 12 championships. So yeah, I think it's going to be an amazing second half of the year. We start to get our conference dual meets going. What matches, we just mentioned a bunch of dual meets. Are there any individual matches, outside of the number of ones I mentioned that Lucas Bird will have that you guys are really looking forward to kind of wrap things up?
I mean, I think starting on Thursday, this Virginia Tech Oklahoma State duel is going to be kind of fire from start to finish. Ventresca Spratley, McGonigal Whitcraft, Latona Jameson, Henson Carter Young, Hippolito and Fish. The only ones that aren't like top 10 matchups are Mac Church and Cam Amin, Lennox Wolak and Dean Hamidi, TJ Stewart, Dustin Plott. Let me see if TJ gets back on the horse. We're going to see Sonny Sasso at 97 versus Luke Serber, and we'll likely see Katka against Wyatt Hendrickson in a facial hair battle. Hendrickson's mustache is way better than Hunter's beard. I'll just go out there and say it now. He does. A large Farva. Very large Farva. Extra large Farva.
That's what's so wild to me, though, is that like a guy that's so clearly built nothing like Farva can look so close to Rod Farva. I think Rod was his first name. But it's like, neck down, there's no similarities. Neck up, identical.
It's fantastic.
Weird how the body works.
What do you think his thoughts on shenanigans are?
I was just going to ask. I bet he likes them.
Pro shenanigans?
I think he's definitely pro shenanigans.
I would say so.
That fun shenanigans?
You can't have a stash like that and not be pro shenanigans.
State car ramrod.
Yeah, if Hendrickson doesn't capitalize NIL money on some Farva merchandise, I'll be disappointed. Fretwell. I need a Hendrickson as Farva t-shirt stat.
I will buy a car ramrod shirt today.
Absolutely.
I'll see. I talk Fretwell every day, but I will see him on Friday. So I'll see what Fretwell. I will plug this. Fretwell does have some really dope gear coming down the pipeline that people should be looking forward to. The teams will be getting I think the teams are getting some pretty cool stuff. I'm not sure, but there's some pretty dope stuff that he has shared in the group text. And I'm looking forward to seeing it and wearing it and having any sort of input on the things that he creates is pretty dope. So looking forward to seeing all that really cool stuff. Remind
him that he has my address, and I am willing to wear whatever.
I'm trying to get him to sponsor the show. So we'll see. But no, there is some really cool compound gear that is going to be coming out. I am going to give him a plug mostly because he's my brother. But definitely be on the lookout for that. It's really dope stuff. But back to wrestling, Austin, what any matches, individual match? I know, we're just excited to get some EIWA and Ivy League dual meets. Are there any sort of matches that we can look forward to? Probably nothing at Lehigh, considering all their guys are redshirting.
Yeah, I mean, part of me says the answer here is Treffin. Owen Treffin, get him in the lineup, see what he looks like, being in a different singlet, different environment, and just see
How
what
will
he puts
Brown look
in.
on him?
Brown looks good on everybody. Just saying.
Eh, eh.
It's not my choice.
The important thing is he growing his hair back out now that he's not in RTC anymore? Because that's the question we need to know. Owen Treffin with long hair, fantastic. Just needs to happen.
Yeah, I might see him Friday. I'll let him know you said that.
Oh yeah. Every time I see him, I let him know that.
Yeah, I'll let him know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I want to see him in the lineup because heavyweight at EIWA, there's 4 or 5 ranked guys in the top 33. Just you expect him to be, probably a top 2 of that, and see if he actually is going to stick there. It'd be interesting to see. And I'm a big Ethan Bergen fan at a Army West Point. Just to see where he stands with Crookham. Just Bergen has a win over Noto this year, and Noto's an All-American type of guy, and Bergen hangs close with Crookham. He's in the All-American mix there at 33 as well. So, Army and Lehigh definitely a good match I'm looking forward to, and there's just a lot coming down the pipeline. I want to see where these guys fall. It's hard for me to do rankings when we don't have any common opponents against each other.
Any Wolfgang matches you're looking forward to?
I don't know. He's been in that lineup right now with Cole
Get it
Hopper
together,
coming down,
Wolfgang.
but yeah, I don't know. I do love the name though. Makes me hungry for like a German bratwurst or something.
EIWA needs to give Austin something to rank. Ivy League, you too.
Yeah.
Kev, what are you looking at individual match wise, as we've already spoke about dual meets? As I said, I'm big on Lucas Bird. Love the matchups that the Short King has in the second half of the season. Who are you looking towards to finish things out?
Well, and we already talked about him a bit. I mean, in general, I want to see if we can get this consistency from Ramos through the season. I was really looking forward to seeing, Caleb Smith and Ramos wrestle at Cliff Keen, Las Vegas, and that didn't happen. They're going to wrestle, I think it's at the end of the season is when their dual meet is, right before Big Tens. So that'll be good. But, McCrone's up there. He's looking good this year. I'm kind of more sad now that I'm looking at the schedules and everything and what we're not going to see. Because now I got all super pumped about Minnesota, and I'm like, okay, well, we're going to get Minnesota, Nebraska. That's going to be awesome matches up and down the lineup. That's going to be great. But they don't wrestle Penn State this year.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to see Kirk Fleet and Gable until Big Tens. So again, we're looking at more stuff that we're not going to see. And I like to see the things. So
yeah,
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but
no, I mean that is something that I always take notice of just like what aren't we getting, right? Like what are we missing out on in the second half, or at least in the entire season?
Well, and I know we talked about it before the season got going, but
Yeah.
I think before when we did that, we didn't know Gable was back. And I don't think that I knew we talked about how Minnesota had guys ranked up and down the lineup. And I talked to, Michigan, Minnesota is going to be good. And I still believe that to be the case. But, it's now it's even better. And now we're not getting it. So,
yeah, I wonder what Gable's schedule looks like. Because, obviously he's not in the lineup for every single dual meet. But with Big Tens coming around, or at least the Big Ten schedule coming around, will he be in the lineup for the Iowa duel? Wait, do they wrestle Iowa? Yes, they do. Will he be there? That's on Valentine's Day. Will he be there on Valentine's Day to wrestle Keeter? Right? Will Feldman be back? And will they see each other? I'm sure we'll get a Gable versus. Well, I shouldn't say I'm sure. I hope we get a Gable versus Slavakuski match when they wrestle Rutgers. So there's a number of matches that you have circled, or at least that we have circled, that you're just like, will Gable be there or won't he be there? With Iowa being their last duel before Big Tens, probably going to be there. I would be surprised if he was not in the lineup for the Iowa duel. I'm sure he probably has the biggest dual meets circled. I'll try and reach out to Eggum and just ask him and say like, hey, what's Gable's schedule, right? Like we want to be able to like hype this stuff and see what we can do around like when he's going to be in the lineup or whatever else. I'm also going to see if I can talk to Gable, get an interview with him because I did talk to Eggum about that the day of the announcement. He was like, yeah, we'll definitely make that happen. So be on the lookout for that as well. Before we wrap up, gentlemen, is there anything else that we missed? Anything that you wanted to make note of? Because obviously, I think we'll probably not talk until after the new year, as we'll all be opening gifts or at least watching kids open gifts, and enjoying some family time. So, anything else that we have missed tonight, or anything that you're looking forward to as we go into 2025?
I did
Keep
want
an
to
eye. I'm sorry.
go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Kev. Nope, you.
Blake Borman, Chattanooga, the guy who got the win yesterday over Bailey.
Bailey,
I
yeah.
did want to shout him out because he so when they wrestled Ohio State, like he and Bizakis were like throwing punches early in the match, like hard clubs. It was like, and I was like, this guy like thinks he should be here. And like, so when I went after Bailey, I was like, this dude's got like some junk to him. Like
Yeah.
he's not out there for fun. He's out there to go take your head off. So shout out to him, and he's definitely somebody to watch out to for. And I also wanted to give a shout out to my dude Luke Smith at Cal State Bakersfield. They got a Big Ten win on Sunday over Michigan State, who traveled out there to Bakersfield. Um, they're obviously brought in some additional talent with Ferrari and me and Heiss and a couple other guys, and he's been developing these guys too. You don't beat a Big Ten team by accident. So, and a lot of close matches where those guys went after it, a couple major decisions in there as well. So I was just really impressed. I wanted to make sure we gave them a shout out because that's a big win for the program who's trying to get reestablished and bring in some talent. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, definitely not a one-man show out there. It's pretty awesome. California coming on strong between Stanford and Cal State Bakersfield.
Cal Baptist
Rob,
had a big win this weekend too.
yeah.
Over what, West Virginia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
It's a good
Morgantown.
win.
Yeah.
So a couple people to keep your eye on at Collegiate Duels from North Carolina. It's going to tell us a lot about kind of where they're at. Ethan Oakley's got some real tough matches. His next 4 matches, he's got Anthony Noto, Nick Bouzakis, Evan Frost this weekend, and then it comes back with Connor McGonigal in his first duel back in the new year. So that's going to be a huge test for him. Josh Ogunsanya is going to make his debut attached for UNC this weekend. So that'll be good to watch. And then Lachlan McNeil's got some big matches coming up as well this weekend. He'll have D'Amelio and Echemendia, if Echemendia is a go, and then comes right back with Caleb Henson. So we're going to learn a lot about where North Carolina's at real quick with this weekend and their first week back.
Awesome. And hopefully Austin gets people that he can actually rank, get some results, because
That'd be
cupboards
nice.
are bare for results in the Ivy and the EIWA.
They're too busy
Gentlemen,
reading books.
yeah,
Yeah, they are.
yeah, damn smart guys. Get on the mat, get out of the classroom. Just
And
kidding.
I got one quick shout out here. I don't talk about small schools too much, but talked to Coach Monday today. They actually have a nice second semester ad coming in. Sincere Bailey, I believe that's Nasir's brother over at Little Rock. He's coming in second semester. Not a ton of results at UNC from what I saw, but pretty highly touted recruit. So hopefully he can fill in, fill in the lineup there and make some noise. I believe 157 he'll be. So look out for Morgan State. They'll have some nice guys in the lineup there second semester.
Awesome. That's great. That is great. Love to see teams develop and get more guys into the lineup.
Love it.
So yeah, definitely looking forward to an explosive second half of the year. As I said, the first half has been awesome, and with conference competition starting in this new year, things are just going to get even better. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure once again. I love everything that we're doing so far this year. Looking forward to everything in 2025. To our listeners and our watchers, appreciate you guys. Appreciate the questions, comments, likes, subscribes, all the fun YouTube jargon that everybody throws in the end of these videos. So yeah, it's been great. Everyone have a happy holidays, happy New Year, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate, make it happy, make it merry, and we'll see you in 2025.